he has indeed left Portman Road. He has moved on, which is a real shame. And it's probably comes as a bit of a surprise to see that he's gone to championship rivals. He's at Swansea City. So, Stu, I know that you've kind of, well, more than anything, you've followed Cameron Burgess's time at Ipswich Town from start to finish. But how do you see this move from all perspectives, from Ipswich's perspective, from Cameron Burgess's perspective? What are your kind of main thoughts on it?
I think the natural first reaction of everyone was surprise. That's not Valencia. That was your WhatsApp message to me when it got announced, and I think that was pretty much all of our reactions when we mentioned the clubs that you've mentioned. I think people got their head around the fact that fair enough, if Cameron Burgess wants to go and play football at clubs of that stature, then reluctantly people would swallow it. But the fact that he's gone to a championship rival, a championship club that have had a series of mid-table finishes over the last 3-4 seasons, brought a bit of shock value to start with. Then when that surprise sort of settles down, I think there's a bit of disappointment and a frustration that Ipswich are losing a player that has been integral to the back-to-back promotions. There's always going to be an extra bit of emotion attached to those sort of players because of, the era. We've seen it with Massimo leaving already. Every time one of those players leaves, there's going to be a tinge of sadness and an extra bit of emotion. And then, as I say, sort of a bit of disappointment, frustration that I think people feeling that actually he'd still do a very good job in the Championship last season. He helped Ipswich get promoted last time around. He was ready whenever called upon in the Premier League. He actually started in 3 of the 4 Premier League wins last season. So disappointment that he's been allowed to leave for free. So I get all of that. And then when you let all those emotions simmer down and you take a step back from it, in a piece I've written today, I do see the logic behind it from all perspectives. Where should we start? Should we look at it from Ipswich Town's perspective? First of all, why they might not have, or why they haven't been able to tie Cameron to a new contract. Let's rewind to last summer. First of all, I guess the first argument will be, shouldn't have let it get to this point, should have offered him a new contract this time last year. But as a club that had just got promoted back-to-back into the Premier League, I think there's probably some valid thinking to think, let's not box ourselves into a corner here. We've got to see how Cameron Burgess does in the Premier League. So I think it was probably right not to rush into something last year and see how things panned out. Is that fair to say?
I'd say so, yeah. And I think that's probably got to be the smart approach for any player that has made the jump up in the way that Cameron Burgess have. And there is kind of a group there at Ipswich, isn't there? Players who have predominantly played lower league football, then have come up League One into the Championship, into the Premier League. And Town, coming into last season, were in a position where they wanted to go and become an established Premier League team. And I think with that, you have to think very, very carefully about the way that you approach contracts for players and essentially looking too far ahead when there's so much transition going on. So from Ipswich's perspective, I don't think that it was necessarily the wrong move to not have instigated those talks earlier, just because there was kind of so much in the balance at that point. I believe it's been the last few months, hasn't it, that they've kind of been in those contract talks. And then it's been about trying to find the right balance for what works for Ipswich and what works for Cameron Burgess. And all parties have to be happy with that. And I guess one of the major kind of cogs in that needs to keep spinning is the shiny new signing from last season, the player who was in the Championship team of the season in 2023-24, one of the players who, when signed, and has been for a long time, been regarded as one of the most exciting young prospects in his position. There are very few that tick all of those boxes that Jacob Greaves does. So factor all those things together, and it kind of felt that it was, I don't want to say doomed to fail from the start, but there were so many hurdles to overcome. Those are the big ones, definitely from Ipswich's perspectives, that stand out for me.
Yeah. So from an Ipswich Town point of view, from my understanding, they offered him a very competitive financial package. It was a 2-year contract offer on the table. And as you said, and as Kieran McKenna's alluded to, those talks started months ago. It's not like something that was just picked up at the end of the season. I think, in a press conference in April, Kieran McKenna says, we'd like him to stay. We think he can be an important member of the squad next season, but we appreciate he has to explore his options. So Ipswich put on the table what they felt was right for them. Would Ipswich fans want the club to be offering more than 2 years to Cameron Burgess, who's 29, 30, who has risen the leagues? And we're talking now about Ipswich as a club. The goalposts have moved in terms of ambition. This is now championship favourites next season. The plan is to get back up and stay up. So if you'd have had Cameron Burgess heading into, if you're talking about year 3 of a 3-year contract and where Ipswich we hope they would be in 3 years' time, you've then got to be mindful of not sort of being tied to contracts that you don't want to be tied to. So Ipswich tried to get that balance right in terms of retaining a player that absolutely could have a big role to play in the short term, but not sort of not putting themselves in a bit of a corner for the longer term as well. So I think it was a fair contract offer that had been made, and an understandable one that had been made from an Ipswich point of view. Reasons why Cameron Burgess wouldn't take that: he's 29. He's played lower league football for most of his career. Someone that didn't quite make it at Fulham has then had to sort of clamber his way up through League Two, League One. It's only the last couple of years that he's been playing at this sort of top level of the game. So I absolutely understand why he'd want to make the most of this last big contract that he's got. I think people always underestimate the length of contract, especially for older players. And, he refers to sort of his family and his goodbye message on social media. And so a little bit of protection for his family in what is a short career, some guaranteed income over 3 years. But I would think the most important thing is the chance to play regular football in a World Cup year. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Australia have qualified for the World Cup in the USA next summer. How many players get to say they've played at a World Cup? And Cameron Burgess has to give himself the absolute best possible chance of playing every week and being in pole position to be in that squad and to start games at a World Cup next summer. So Ipswich can't guarantee that. They can say to him, look, you've got every chance. It's a fair fight for you to get in that left-sided centre-half role. And, as you've seen last season, you've still started 16 games in the Premier League. You can get in, you can stay in. But the reality is, he knows for all of that Jacob Greaves was signed for £15 million and Ipswich will want to build up their asset.